we are not going to let this state be overrun by woke ideology. We will fight the woke in government agencies. We will fight the woke in our schools. We will never, ever surrender to the woke agenda. Florida is the state where woke goes to die.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis continuing his war on woke corporation throughout the Sunshine State. In an effort to stop diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings within corporations, Governor DeSantis had announced the Stop Woke Act, claiming these corporate training programs discriminate against white employees, with an increasing number of Jewish folks and Asians alleging they're also facing discrimination in the workplace. But last week, an Obama-appointed Florida federal district judge, Mark Walker, struck down DeSantis' Stop Woke Act in the Honey Fund v. DeSantis lawsuit on grounds that the law infringes on the First Amendment. Professor Eugene Kontorovich at the George Mason University's Antonin Scalia School of Law recently penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal where he argues in favor of Governor DeSantis' Stop Woke Act, citing that there's little difference between the proposed law and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And the professor joins us now live in studio. Thank you so much for coming on. What a fascinating story. As we've been watching Governor DeSantis make some national headlines, you took interest in this case. Tell me about the comparison you're alleging in your Wall Street Journal op-ed.
So current civil rights law, current employment discrimination law, says that not only are you not allowed to deny people jobs because of their race or sex, but you're not allowed to make their job particularly unpleasant. And that's what's called the hostile work environment theory. So under this theory, making crude racist jokes, if some employees are making crude racist jokes, the employer could actually be liable under the existing civil rights law. All that the Florida Stop Woke Act says is that these DEI trainings can, under the right circumstances, themselves create a hostile work environment. And it's not surprising to anyone who's ever sat through them, because if you hear that white people are inherently racist, that white people need to feel guilty about history, that there are certain essential aspects of being white or being black, that could make a white person feel like the environment is hostile, especially because these comments are not just jokes said by fellow employees. These are messages sent by the employer to which the employee is expected to adhere. So under existing civil rights law, this should already be actionable, and the Florida law is just making that clear.
Okay. Well, even Judge Walker sort of noted something to that in his ruling. He said in part, diversity and inclusion training could be so offensive and so hostile to white employees that it could create a hostile work environment. That is already illegal. So again, sort of noting what you're saying there. You know, but we've seen these workplaces just really lean into this diversity and inclusion training, really bringing it to light in their conversations with employees. Have you heard from employees who might be hesitant to speak up, saying that they are feeling uncomfortable because race is brought up and their own race, they feel, is meant to feel lesser than others, or that they should apologize for the race?
Of course. The employee trainings, especially, not all employee trainings, but many DEI trainings are done in a way which are going to make a large number of employees feel like they are unwelcome. And that could potentially be actionable, but they're afraid to speak up because there's this impression that's created by rulings, including like the ruling by this judge, that racist speech in the workplace can create a hostile work environment if it's Archie Bunker type comments. But if it's the theories of Ibram Kendi, then it's totally okay. In other words, it depends whether your racism is the right kind, the politically accepted racism or not. And the point of Governor DeSantis' law is to say the kind of racism that has become fashionable in academic circles, in certain corporate circles, is no less legally actionable, is no less discriminatory in the workplace than old-fashioned crude comments of the Archie Bunker variety.
All right. We're going to keep an eye on that story. Again, the very latest with the judge's ruling. But we got a development, of course, this past week about student debt and the changes that could be coming to it when it comes to forgiveness. Governor DeSantis had a comment about it. Let's listen together.
He does not have the constitutional authority to do this. He is relying on emergency powers because of COVID. So wait a minute. You got a PhD in gender studies 5 years ago, and that has something to do with COVID?
Some questions about the legality of this move from the president. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think the forgiveness action is completely illegal. The president is the chief executive. He is supposed to carry out the policies of Congress. And especially when it comes to things to do with spending and the budget, that's supposed to, under our Constitution, be determined by Congress. This is a close to $1 trillion giveaway, which has never been provided for in any law. Right? That is, it doesn't say this anywhere. This is perhaps one of the largest executive authorities ever done without any, it's really a dictatorial fiat,
Sure.
closer to more than a separation of powers rule.
So if this were to be challenged, who might bring the lawsuit? Who would be the prosecutor?
So that's actually not obvious, because in our constitutional system, just because the government's doing something illegal doesn't mean you can sue to challenge it in court. You can only sue if they're doing it to you, if you're hurt directly in some way. It's called the standing doctrine. But I think it's quite possible that states could have standing here. For example, a state like Florida, because of the harm to state universities. Why do states subsidize in-state universities, public universities, to keep students from taking on this debt, because private colleges are so expensive?
Right.
If, however, private loans are forgiven, then it changes the whole calculus for state schools. So Florida itself could be a plaintiff here.
Maybe states attorneys generals, as you
Indeed,
point out.
exactly.
Professor, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you. Great to be here.